Hong Kong Stock Exchange Directors Training. Responsibilities of directors of companies listed on the main board of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. 11. Disclosure of financial information. 1. Annual report and accounts. The requirements in relation to a company's annual report and accounts are set out in the company's ordinance and in Chapter 13 and Appendix 16 of the main board rules. The issuer should disclose its policy on payment of dividends in its annual report, Code Provision E1.5. Timing of distribution of annual report. A main board listed issuer must send a copy of its annual report including its annual accounts and, if it prepares consolidated financial statements, its consolidated financial statements, together with a copy of the auditor's report to every shareholder and every holder of its listed securities not less than 21 days before the date of its annual general meeting and no less than 4 months after the end of the financial year. Main Board Rule 13.46. The annual accounts, director's report, and auditor's report must be laid before the annual general meeting and must be prepared in both English and Chinese. In the case of overseas shareholders, it is sufficient for the listed issuer to mail the English language version of the relevant documents, provided that such documents contain a prominent statement in English and Chinese that a Chinese version is available from the company on request. Financial statements must include the disclosures required under the relevant accounting standards adopted, as well as the information specified in Appendix 16 of the main board rules, Appendix 16, including a statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, a statement of financial position, and information on the rates of dividend paid or proposed for each class of shares, paragraph 4 of Appendix 16. Annual financial statements must be prepared in accordance with Hong Kong or International Financial Reporting Standards or China Accounting Standards for Business Enterprises, CASBE. In the case of a Chinese issuer that has adopted CASBE, paragraph 2.1 of Appendix 16. 2. Half-year reports and accounts. Listed companies are also required to pay half-year reports and must send these to the company's shareholders and holders of their listed securities within 3 months of the end of the first 6 months of each financial year. Main Board Rule 13.48, brackets 1. The contents required for half-year reports are set out in Appendix 16 to the Main Board Rules. The financial statements included in the half-year report will generally be unaudited. If this is the case, this fact must be stated. If the financial statements are audited, the auditor's report and any qualifications must be included in the half-year report, paragraph 43 of Appendix 16 of the Main Board Rules. There is a requirement that half-year reports are reviewed by the listed issuer's audit committee, paragraph 39 of Appendix 16 of the Main Board Rules. 3. Quarterly reporting. Quarterly reporting is a recommended best practice only under the Corporate Governance Code, recommended best practice C.1.5, rather than a mandatory obligation under the main board rules. If a main board listed issuer decides to publish quarterly financial results, it should do so within 45 days of the end of each quarter. If it subsequently decides not to publish the financial results for any particular quarter, the company should publish an announcement disclosing the reason or reasons for the decision, recommended best practice C.1.5 of the Corporate Governance Code. 4. Preliminary announcements of results. A company listed on the main board must publish a preliminary announcement of its annual and half-year results on the website of the exchange and the listed issuer as soon as possible. A company listed on the main board must publish a preliminary announcement of its annual and half-year results on the websites of the exchange and the listed issuer as soon as possible, and in any event, no later than 30 minutes before the earlier of the commencement of the morning trading session or any pre-opening session on the business day after the approval by the board. Preliminary year-end results must be published no later than 3 months after the financial year end, and preliminary half-year results must be published no later than 2 months after the half-year end. 5. Consequences of failure to publish financial information. For main board issuers, the listing rules provide that the exchange will normally require trading in a listed issuer's shares to be suspended if it fails to publish its financial information on time. Main Board Rule 13.50. The suspension will last until the company publishes the required financial information. 6. Additional information required in financial reports of mineral companies. 1. Mineral companies are required to include in their half-yearly and annual reports details of their exploration, development, and mining production activities, and a summary of expenditure incurred on the activities during the period under review. If there has been no exploration, development, or production activity, that fact must be stated. Main Board Rule 18.14. However, to the extent that there are material changes in funding requirements or exploration activities, companies must update shareholders immediately under the general disclosure requirements. 2. Mineral companies must provide an annual update of their resources and/or reserves in their annual report. Main Board Rule 18.15. Such updates must be prepared in accordance with the accepted reported standard under which they were previously disclosed, or, if none, under one of the accepted reporting standards. The annual updates are not required to be supported by a competent person's report, and thus may be prepared by the company's own internal experts. Annual updates may only be achieved by way of a no material change statement, which can be prepared by a company's internal management. 3. Other non-mineral companies. Listed issuers that publicly disclose details of resources and/or reserves are also required to provide annual updates of those resources or reserves in their annual reports. Such updates must be prepared in accordance with the reporting standards under which they were previously disclosed, or one of the accepted reporting standards. They may also be achieved by way of a no material change statement. The Exchange has published guidelines on the disclosures required in the annual and interim reports of mineral companies and other listed issuers, which publicly disclose details of their resources and/or reserves. This is set out in Exchange Letter HKEx GL 47-13, Continuing Obligations under Chapter 18.